Welcome to Must Have Missed It, the podcast about how James hasn't seen any movies.
I'm going to see a lot more this year, man. I have a plan.
What's that famous movie you're always quoting, the one you and your friends can't stop referencing? There's a really good chance James has never seen it.
Hey, maybe I have, maybe I haven't, but mostly I haven't.
But that's why we're here. I'm forcing James to watch a whole lot of movies I think he probably should have seen already.
I got to tell you, man, I'm really disappointed in myself that I hadn't seen this one.
You should be. I'm Josh, and I may look like a sheep, but inside, I'm a fox. And this is my co-host.
I'm James, and wow, this is so metaphorical.
I love a good metaphor, but metaphorical subscribers do not help us at all. So please literally subscribe to the YouTube channel and the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We'll post stuff occasionally on TikTok. I say that, but we really don't. We will. I promise we will. It's coming. There's content coming for TikTok. I promise. Also, in the meantime, follow us on Instagram. We'll keep you updated on whatever we're doing. We will. We haven't been, but we will.
We'll try.
At Must Have Missed It, and follow us on Twitter at Must Have Missed It. And if you are a Discord person, please join the Discord. So, James, what movie are we talking about today?
Today, we're going to be talking about BongJoon-ho's masterpiece that is Parasite.
Parasite. I have been trying to get you to watch this movie for 2 years, and as I mentioned to you the other day, I am so glad that you never watched this movie. It was on the roulette wheel of movies that James and his wife might watch, and it just never hit the number for Parasite, which was fortunate for the podcast because now we get to talk about this fucking amazing movie.
Yeah, cannot wait.
So what did you know about this movie going into it?
That it was a Bong Joon-ho flick.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot comes with that if you've seen
His previous films.
Yeah.
You kind of common themes.
Yeah. You put me on to Snowpiercer.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of knew that it had to do with kind of a little bit of class warfare, but really didn't know what to expect in terms of the story.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think this is a film that even as you're watching it, you don't really know what to expect because halfway through this movie, it becomes a completely different style of film, and there aren't many movies that could manage to pull that off and have both halves of it work so successfully, and it's just a fantastic movie. I think the reason we picked it was because, again, I've been talking to you about this movie for 2 years, and I think around the time you watched Squid Game, I was like, okay, this is the time. Parasite, watch Parasite, because I know your wife watched Squid Game with you, and I think she was a little burnt out on the foreign language thing at that point. Yeah.
She really enjoyed Squid Game, but once we were done, it would have been like pulling teeth to get her to watch anything else in Korean. So
but nothing specific in terms of timing. This is just a movie that I wanted to talk about with James on this podcast, so I made sure to fit it into season 1. I think this is one of the greatest films of the century so far. I don't think we'll get into that. I don't think a lot of people would disagree with that sentiment. I think this is Bong's masterpiece. It is just a fantastic film. It takes all of the things that he focused on in some of his previous films and just hits at every level. I think this movie is, I don't like to say anything is perfect, but it's pretty close.
Yeah.
So on the how have you not seen this meter, I'm going to rate this one pretty high just because I've been like, James, you should watch Parasite. James, you should watch Parasite. James, you should watch Parasite. And usually if I bug you enough about a movie, I can make it happen. But again, like I said, I'm glad it didn't because now we get to talk about it on this podcast.
Also, how I feel about this system that we are subject to.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons I thought you would love this movie.
And dude, like I said, I'm ashamed. Like this shit is so up my alley. Oh. All right.
Parasite began its life in 2013 while writer-director Bong Joon-ho was working on his film Snowpiercer, which is also very dope. But I made James watch that movie years ago, so no podcast on that one. Bong was encouraged by a friend who worked in the theater to write a play. It would later be turned into a 15-page film treatment, which would then be adapted into 3 different screenplay drafts by Bong's production assistant on Snowpiercer, Han Jin-won. I want to go ahead and apologize in advance. I meant to do this at the beginning of the podcast for my terrible pronunciation of the Korean language. I'm not well versed, and I wish I was. Any of our followers who speak Korean, I am so sorry, truly sorry. We are doing the best we can. If there's something we mispronounced, please let us know about it. Twitter, email at musthavemissedit@gmail.com. We'd love to hear how wrong we were.
Yeah. Educate us.
But Bong would later finish the script after he finished his 2017 film Okja, which I also made James watch already, so no podcast on that one either. The script was inspired by Bong's time as a tutor to the son of a wealthy family while he was in his early 20s. It was also influenced by a 1960 Korean film called The Housemaid. In that film, a middle-class family's life gets thrown into disarray when a housekeeper shows up and kind of starts being very aggressive in the family's life. When Bong presented the title Parasite to the marketing department, they were like, nah, fam, that's not going to work for us. They misrepresented the title as thinking that it was in direct reference to the Kim family in this movie, and Bong had to explain to them that it's not that. It's about the fact that each family is a parasite in their own way. You know, the Kims obviously they need the Parks to be successful and make a living and advance themselves. But just as much the Parks need the Kims because they can't even wash their own dishes or cook for themselves or drive. So they're just as dependent on the Kims as the Parks are the Kims on the Parks.
I think it's just kind of a commentary on the parasitic nature of the economic system.
Hashtag capitalism. Darcy Paquette was hired to be the translator for the English subtitles as well as some of the background details in English. He worked closely with BongJoon-ho, who was probably worried about some of his dialogue being lost in translation. That tends to happen with foreign films. Certain things were localized for English-speaking audience, such as replacing Seoul National University and Kakao Talk with Oxford University and WhatsApp, respectively. Paquette also wanted to make sure that all the jokes hit, as he wrote, with an unfamiliar word, the humor can be lost. So, you've got to give the people that speak the language the reference that they're going to understand so that they get the humor of the sentence or the dialogue. Hong Kyung-pyo served as director of photography for this film. He had previously worked with Bong on Mother in 2009 and Snowpiercer in 2013. Filming took place around Seoul and Jeonju between May 18, 2018 and September 19, 2018. The Park's home was built on a set, and it was designed to be, quote, a stage that served the precise needs of Bong's camera, compositions, and characters while embodying the film's rich themes, which is 100% the kind of statement that I would say is movie bullshit unless you've actually seen this movie. The garden and ground floor were built on an empty outdoor lot, while the basement and first floor were built on a set. When you see the house from the outside, everything above the first floor, movie magic, folks. The location of the lot was even chosen specifically by production designer Lee Ha-jun to accommodate DP Hong Kyung-pyo's desired natural lighting. He wanted to make sure the lighting was what he wanted during specific times of the day, so they arranged the set in such a way that the light would come through the window when they wanted it to. The Kim's apartment and the street it's on were also built on set to allow for the flooding scene. You can't really do that, on real street. People are not going to be okay with you flooding their homes. So the score was written by Jung Jae-il. If it were any more minimalist, it wouldn't exist. I don't recall many tracks from this film, but I remember how every scene made me feel, which I think is kind of the point of a score. And I don't think I've heard one that accomplishes that much better than this one recently. It does its job, but it was not easy to choose a top bop for this podcast.
Yeah.
There is an original song that plays during the credits, which is performed by Choi Woo-shik, the actor who plays Ki-woo, and written by Bong-Joon-ho, called Soju Hanjan. It's a downer, folks. In case you were wondering how this movie really ends, feel free to look up a translation for that song. Hilariously, when this song was first released digitally, the song title was displayed in English as Soju One Glass. Great shit.
What?
Yeah. Soju Hanjan means a glass of soju. Yeah. So the literal a glass soju. Yeah. Soju one glass. Yeah. That's fucking great.
Dope.
I love it. Oh, so this is going to get rough. I apologize. Again, I apologize. I'm so sorry. The cast includes Song Kang-ho as Kim Ki-taek, a.k.a. Mr. Kim, the patriarch of the Kim family, who eventually becomes the Park family's driver. Jang Hae-jin as Chung-suk, the matriarch of the Kim family, who will eventually usurp the position of housekeeper for the Park family. Choi Woo-shik as Ki-woo, a.k.a. Kevin, Ki-taek and Chung-suk's son, who is the first of the family hired by the Park family when he becomes a tutor for the Park family's daughter. Park So-dam as Ki-jung, a.k.a. Jessica, the daughter of the Kim family, who is hired to be the art therapist for the Park family's young son. Lee Sung-kyun as Park Dong-ik, a.k.a. Nathan Park, the rich asshole patriarch of the Park family. Cho Ye-jong as Choi Young-gyo, the drug-addled mother of the Park family. Jung Ji-so as Dae, the Park family's daughter who is tutored by Ki-woo. Jung Hyun-jun as Park Da-song, the young son of the Park family. Lee Jung-yoon as Guk-moon Gwang, the Park family housekeeper that previously worked for the architect that built the house and knows it way better than the Parks do. Park Myung-hoon as Oh Gyun-se, Moon Wong's husband and ghost impersonator. Park So-joon as Min, a much better friend to Ki-woo than Ki-woo is to him. And Jung Yi-so as the owner of the pizza business who still pays the Kims for those defective boxes. What are you doing? Don't pay money for subpar work. That's absurd. Parasite's world premiere occurred at the 2019 Cannes Film Festival on May 21st, becoming the first South Korean film to win the Palme d'Or and winning with a unanimous vote. First time that had happened since 2013, when Blue is the Warmest Color won, which is a very different movie. It released in South Korea 9 days later, where it did $20.7 million on its opening weekend. Released in New Zealand and Australia on June 27th, becoming the highest grossing non-English film ever in Australia. I think it was also the highest grossing Korean film in the history of the region. It released in the US and Canada on October 11th after screening at the Toronto International Film Festival in September. Released in the UK and Ireland on February 7th, 2020. It was supposed to actually appear at a film festival, a big film festival in China. It ended up being canceled due to technical reasons. I think the technical reasons were the content of the film. I think that's probably mostly what that was. Parasite hauled in a total of $258.7 million worldwide, with $71.4 million in South Korea, $53.4 in the US and Canada, and $133.9 million elsewhere, becoming the first of Bong's film to cross the $100 million threshold worldwide. Obviously, it set the record for his grosses on any of his movies. Critics pretty much adored this movie across the board. There were very few negative reviews of this film. Few enough that I really wanted to call out every single one of these reviewers individually, but I thought that would just take up a little too much time.
Oh.
That said, there is one especially egregious review I want to share. So, writing for Movie Real Talk, Betty Jo Tucker, I'll try to do justice to the bars you spit in your review because this is directly quoted from that review, which Rotten Tomatoes uses to calculate their ratings and is given the same weight as a review by, A.O. Scott, Adam Naiman, or, literally anyone else who might know what they're talking about and also doesn't have poems, raps, whatever the fuck this is in their reviews. I'm a way better rapper than this, I promise. This is intentionally terrible, rapping old granny style, so please understand that this is meant to sound the way it does.
Oh, jeez.
Forgive me. I need a beat. It's fine. I'll figure it out. So what went wrong in Parasite? Things that happened don't seem right. Impressively disgusting, yes, with shock and awe mixed in the mess. My expectations way too high. Because of Okja, here's a sigh. Snowpiercer 2, I thought first rate. And BongJoon-ho, director great. Billed in part as a comedy, nothing to me appeared funny. Some satire, but not at its best, and ugliness filled in the rest. What else was missing this time out? A character we shout about. Still congrats for awards it's won. Glad I watched it, and now that's done. That's part of the reason I don't put any fucking stock into Rotten Tomatoes scores. That's from an actual fucking review that Rotten Tomatoes was like, we should give this review credence.
That was the review.
That was the majority of the fucking review of this movie. It was over half of the words in the review of this fucking movie.
Which one of those is the,
I don't know which one's the boo.
Boo?
Whichever one's the boo. Thank you. Get the fuck out of here, Buddy Joe Tucker. Moving on. Parasite became the first international film to win the Screen Actors Guild Award for Outstanding Performance by a Cast in a Motion Picture. It was nominated for 4 BAFTAs: Best Film, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Film Not in the English Language. It was the first South Korean film to ever receive nominations in any category other than Best Film Not in the English Language, and it went on to win that BAFTA as well as Best Original Screenplay. At the Academy Awards, Parasite became the first non-English language film to win Best Picture. Very deserving. Anybody wants to argue that? Bye. Bong would also win Best Director as well as Best Original Screenplay and Best International Feature Film. It was also nominated for Best Film Editing and Best Production Design. It should have won those two. Definitely Production Design, which is fantastic in this movie. It's so good. The way I don't want, I'll probably talk about that later. Enough about this movie. What is this movie actually about? The movie opens in the Kim family's semi-basement apartment with Ki-woo trying to find a connection to Wi-Fi since no one in the family has service for their phones. As Katek munches on moldy bread, he instructs Ki-woo to hold his phone high and search the house for that sweet, Wi-Fi. Eventually, they find a connection on their elevated toilet, which is rough. Fuck, man, that's terrible.
Wild location for a toilet.
Really strange location for a toilet. The family's unable to find steady jobs, so they resort to folding pizza boxes in their home, poorly, for cash. Fumigators come down the street, and Katek instructs his family to keep the window open so they can get free pest control. Seems like a terrible plan. The owner of the pizza place shows up to get her boxes, and she lets them know that their work is subpar and she's not paying the full price. Ki-woo angles for a job at the restaurant, but the owner is non-committal, so the Kims get their 90% and celebrate with a feast of energy drinks and snacks. Ki-woo's friend Min shows up to deliver a gift from his grandfather, Scholar's Rock, which is supposed to bring material wealth to its owner. This is so metaphorical. But he also has another gift for Ki-woo, a job tutoring a rich kid in English. Min asks Ki-woo to do this because he has feelings for this girl and knows that he can trust Ki-woo not to try to hit on her. Ki-woo is unsure, but Min assures him that it will be very easy to get the job because Ki-woo will have his recommendation. More importantly, the mother is, in Min's words, young and simple. With a little forgery from Ki-jung, Ki-woo is now a college student, or appears to be, which is all that really matters, and heads to his interview with the madam of the Park family. He's led in by the housekeeper, who tells him that the house was designed by the famous architect Nam Goong, and he's instructed to take a seat while she goes out and wakes the madam, who is like drug-addledly nodded off in the garden. Turns out the forgery was unnecessary, as that madam barely looks at Ki-woo's fake documents. She asked to sit in on the lesson to make her decision. Ki-woo spits absolute nonsense during the lesson, and the madam, clearly as simple as Min described, hires him. As Ki-woo, now Kevin, is leaving, Desong comes downstairs firing arrows. Mrs. Park explains that Desong is obsessed with Native Americans and shows him some of Desong's art. Is that a chimpanzee? No, it's a self-portrait. It's so metaphorical. When Mrs. Park mentions how hard it's been to keep an art teacher around for Desong, Ki-woo hatches a plan to get Ki-jung a job as well, pretending that she went to art school with his cousin. Mrs. Park is like, you had me at Illinois State University. Ki-jung goes for an interview and Ki-woo goes upstairs to tutor Dae. Turns out she's sweet on Kevin. It also turns out that Ki-woo is a bad friend and happily kisses Dae. Ki-jung, now Jessica, refuses to play by Mrs. Park's rules and orders her to leave the lesson. She also spouts some more bullshit to Mrs. Park about psychology, so she gets hired. Mr. Park arrives home and Mrs. Park introduces him to Jessica. They decide to have the driver Yun take Jessica home. She has to be let off at a subway station rather than be taken home. And while she does this, she comes up with her own plan to bring more money into the Kim home by getting Katek hired as Park's driver. She leaves her underwear in the car, which Mr. Park finds and shows to Mrs. Park. They decide that Yun is probably drugging women to have sex with them in Mr. Park's car, so they decide to fire him. Ki-jung is listening to the entire conversation, and she suggests to Mrs. Park that they hire an older gentleman that she knew when she was younger. You know, nice guy. Katek, now Mr. Kim, meets Mr. Park at his office, and they go for a drive. He gets hired. Now the final part of their plan is to replace Moon-gwang, the housekeeper, with Chung-suk, guaranteeing employment for the entire family. They employ an incredibly complicated plan to use Moon-gwang's allergy to peaches to make it seem like she has tuberculosis. This requires so many specific things to go right that it's almost comical, but I think that's kind of the point of this movie, is to be a little cartoonish. It's a satire. Mrs. Park, a total fucking moron, falls for the ruse and fires Moon-gwang. Mr. Kim tells Mr. Park about an exclusive membership service that provides services such as housekeepers and drivers to premium clients, and Park passes it on to his wife. The service sends a new housekeeper, and no surprise whatsoever, it's Chung-suk. Desong smells Mr. Kim and then Chung-suk and tells his parents that they smell just like Jessica. That, folks, is the smell of poverty. The Parks are going camping for Desong's birthday, so the Kims decide to take advantage of the house and get smashed. They talk about how easy it must be to be nice when you have so much money, but I've never seen any evidence of that in my entire life. Chung-suk says that she would be even nicer than the Parks before shoving the dog away, as Ki-jung goes from a 2 to a 10 on the drunk scale in less than 5 minutes. The family ribs each other for a little while before the doorbell rings. Who the fuck? It's Moon-gwang, looking rough and claiming that she left something in the house, and she seems fucking crazy. She goes downstairs, and after a few minutes, Chung-suk goes to see what she's up to. Moon-gwang is trying to push a cabinet across the floor, and Chung-suk tries to help her, so she pulls the metal plate out from under the cabinet, slides it over, revealing a door. Moon-gwang fucks her face up even worse. Jesus Christ, that's a rough fall. Yeah. She descends the stairs screaming, with Chung-suk following. It turns out that her husband has been living in this bunker under the house for the last 4 years. She hid him there before the Parks moved in, and she kept smuggling food down to him for years until she was fired. She attempts to get Chung-suk to agree to continue to take care of her husband, but Chung-suk has no sympathy. As Chung-suk begins to call the police, the rest of the Kims fall down the stairs, and Moon-gwang realizes the scam they're pulling. She records the Kims and threatens to send the video to Mrs. Park. She's wielding the phone like a gun and forces the Kims upstairs. Moon-gwang and her husband, Jun-se, unwind on the couch, but the Kims catch them slipping and unleash their secret weapon, peaches, to wrestle the phone away. That was close, but not so fast. Mrs. Park calls to let Chung-suk know that they'll be home in less than 10 minutes and they want Ramdan. What the fuck is Ramdan? I don't know. The Kims scramble to clean up the mess and return Moon-gwang and Jun-se to the cellar. Ki-woo hides under Dai's bed while Ki-jung dives under the coffee table. Katek ties up Jun-se, and Moon-gwang attempts to escape. It's foiled when she's kicked down the stairs by Chung-suk, smashing her head on the wall and being knocked unconscious. Katek drags her back down into the bunker and goes further down to find Jun-se singing the song of respect to Mr. Park. This guy's lost his marbles. Jun-se has also been sending the messages to family with Morse code through the lights, but no one has caught on to it yet. Mrs. Park tells the story of the song to Chung-suk. about him seeing a ghost when he was in first grade, but it was just Jinsei. The Kims try to make their escape, but the Parks come downstairs before they can get out of the house, forcing them to scramble back under the coffee table. Desong is going to camp outside, so the Parks decide to sleep on the couch. They talk some shit about the way poor people smell, and before sleeping, they try to role play and fool around on the couch. Whew. Sucks to be the Kims. Eventually, the Parks fall asleep, and the Kims make their way home to find it completely flooded. Moon Gwang regains consciousness long enough to tell her husband to avenge her. The Kims grab a few precious belongings from their flooded apartment, including the Scholar's Stone, which is floating, which is kind of weird for a rock, and Chung Suk's silver medal, and go to seek shelter in a gym. The next day, that night, Kiwoo asks Katek about the plan that he's been working on. Katek admits that he doesn't even fuck with plans. If you don't have a plan, man, what can go wrong? Not gonna lie, that's some familiar shit to me. The next day, Katek, Kiwoo, and Kijung each get a call that Desong is having an impromptu birthday party and they will all need to be there. Mr. Kim takes Mrs. Park shopping and Kiwoo distractedly makes out with Dahae. Mr. Park co-ops Mr. Kim into helping with a fake Indian attack during Desong's party. Kiwoo heads downstairs with the Scholar's Stone to do, scholarly stuff, but ends up dropping the stone down the stairs. When he goes to retrieve it, he's attacked by Jinsei, who then smashes Kiwoo's head with the Scholar's Stone before chugging some alcohol and going to find another victim. He grabs a knife and heads to the garden, where he runs up on Kijung and stabs her in the chest, probably assuming that it was Chung Suk. That's kind of what it seems like. He seems surprised that it's her. Desong, seeing this, has a seizure and absolute chaos erupts. Kijung is bleeding out. Jinsei is attacking Chung Suk. Dahae is piggybacking a very bloody Kiwoo. Mr. Park is screaming for the keys to the car. Katek throws the keys towards him, but comes up short. Chung Suk stabs Jinsei in the guts and scrambles away. The keys land under Jinsei, and Mr. Kim goes to turn him over to grab the keys, but he's overcome by the stench of his poverty. Katek breaks and stabs Mr. Park in the chest before fleeing from the scene. Kiwoo wakes up in the hospital laughing at the news he receives. He and his mother are on probation. Kijung is dead, and his father is missing. Kiwoo goes to a hill overlooking the mansion and stays past dark. He sees a light flashing on and off in the kitchen and realizes it's Morse code. He translates the message, discovering that his father is now hiding in the bunker of the house, which has been sold to a German family that does not know the people were just murdered in the garden. Kiwoo comes up with a plan. He'll earn a lot of money, and then he'll buy the house, and Katek can be free. Doesn't that sound nice? Quotes from the notes. What you got, sir?
Oh, all right. So it's a chimpanzee, right?
Yeah, chimpanzee. It's so great.
I know you mentioned that one, but oh man. And she's like, it's a self-portrait. And he's like, oh, sure enough. And then he comments about how Desong's artistic genius
can't be comprehended, basically.
Understanding.
Yeah. It's so funny.
That whole interaction is fantastic. I really like the song that Ki-young and Kiwoo created, and they recite at the door.
Yeah, the little rhyme or whatever. Yeah.
Just kind of reminded me of me and my sister, and anyone who has a sibling. Yeah. Probably thought that identified with that moment there and something they had done before. Quotes in particular, man, I don't want to butcher this one. How did it go? Respect. Dude,
it's hilarious. It's so funny.
Absolutely insane. We will get to this character, one of the most interesting ones, but the respect. Funny, but also
pretty sad.
Yeah, sad.
Very sad. Yeah.
Tragic.
Yeah.
The company Mr. Park works for is called Another Brick. It took me until my third watch to notice that.
Yeah.
And I immediately hopped on Google, and the best I could find is BongJoon-ho said he doesn't know why he put it in there, but it's probably because he was a big Pink Floyd fan.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite band of all time. made me feel that much closer to Bong Joon-ho. So that was dope.
Well, it also fits into the themes of the movie about,
Right.
poor people are replaceable.
Exactly.
Just put another brick in the wall. It'll be fine.
And I mean, if you're a big Floyd fan, no doubt you have some strong feelings related to this movie. If you've ever listened to the album Animals, I mean, the whole album is about this.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else did I have? This isn't really a quote, but I just love how the line is brought up throughout this movie and constantly referenced. Whether it's Mr. Park talking about people not crossing the line, whether it's a literal camera shot movement creating a line between two characters. Like, there's just so many lines in this movie, and I just love how that never goes.
Almost. I think almost every shot that features a Kim family member and a Park family member, if you pay attention to the screen, there will be a vertical line somewhere that separates those two characters. Almost every single time they appear on screen together.
Yeah.
It's the
deep.
attention to detail with stuff like that is phenomenal.
I think that's about it for quotes from the notes for me. What do you have?
The shot of the madam leading Kiwoo upstairs when he first is doing, I guess, the audition lesson to get the job to replace Min. As they're going up the stairs and leaving the frame, you see Moon-gwang come into the frame on the bottom floor. And I don't know really what it is about that shot, but it is mesmerizing to me. Like, I just sat there and rewound it and watched it 3 or 4 times in a row. I'm just like, this is just perfect blocking. And I mean, the timing of the shot and, the metaphor of the upstairs, downstairs relationship of the Parks to their, the people that work for them. Like, it's just such a great shot. My absolute favorite shot in this entire movie. Is Park eating applesauce in the scene where they discuss finding the underwear in the car? Because he's got like the little squeeze thing.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, it reminded me of my daughter when she was like 4, eating applesauce out of the little squeeze tube.
I guess I never even gave it a second thought, but yeah, it's like a Capri Sun, but not.
Yeah, it's like a fruit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I also had crossing the line. Like I said, that how often there's a literal line separating the Park family member from the Kim family member in this movie. The scene with Moon-gwang in the kitchen where she turns around in the dark and delivers with that grin on her face and delivers the "wanna come down with me" line is fucking nightmare fuel for me. That is just one of the creepiest images I've seen in a movie in a really long time.
Creepy shit for sure.
Absolutely.
Definitely makes like the hairs on your neck stand up.
Yeah. And the day of the party, the entirety of that, I don't want to call it a montage. I mean, there are montage elements in it, but just the juxtaposition of them waking up in a gym to the Parks waking up in their home, being in front of a mirror and walking through a giant closet to pick out what you want while they're literally pulling clothes out of a pile off the floor. The entire from the moment that the first phone call happens until the end of this movie is just masterful visual storytelling. Masterful.
I have a feeling everything you just mentioned is going to come up again.
So before we get to the bourbon break, you have anything else you want to add?
I don't think so.
All right, man. Let's go do a bourbon break.
Let's do it.
Sounds good. And we are back. So, James, how did you feel about Parasite, and how did Parasite make you feel?
You know that feeling when maybe you're sharing an opinion with someone and they get exactly how you feel and you just feel validated?
Yeah.
Yeah. That. This movie is so up my alley. I told Josh earlier, it's probably a contender for my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah. Like I said, I knew you would love this movie, especially once we did the Avatar podcast. I was like, oh my God, I cannot wait until we do Parasite. It is going to be so good.
Emotionally, I don't know how you don't go through kind of a roller coaster in this movie.
Yeah. BongJoon-ho.
Yeah. Tonal shifts, all of that. But yeah, validated, man. Just watching it and going, yeah, fucking right. Yeah, this is what's fucking wrong.
Right.
You know? So yeah, just all the way throughout the movie, man, just kind of just satisfied. I don't think there was a moment. There's one scene, but other than one scene, there's not a moment in this movie that I wasn't just there for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, I feel like you've already answered this question, but does this movie live up to the hype for you?
It fucking just surpasses the hype.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's impressive. Best picture, best director, best original screenplay, best foreign film, and it surpasses the hype. So, love to hear it.
Yeah.
In terms of music and movie magic, what stood out in terms of sound design, costume, set design, score, visuals?
The set, the main set, the Park household is just beautiful.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
Sound design, like you mentioned before, nothing in the score really jumps out at you, but it's all extremely appropriate. It makes you feel how you're supposed to feel, helps guide your emotions through the scenes when it's present.
Yeah.
There is a shot during the flood scene, an overhead shot, go figure, of I'm not quite sure if it's
I think it's the Kims. Yeah. I think it's the Kims.
I wasn't sure if it was them or just another family, but they're on a floating door going through the city, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But it's also visually just
striking.
Stunning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I say props to Lee Ha-joon for the production design on this movie. The design of the house is just phenomenal. The basic layout was designed by Bong Joon-ho, who, knew kind of how he wanted this. He storyboarded every single shot in this movie. If you look at the storyboards and then compare it to the movie, he knew exactly what he wanted to show you in this movie, and the way it's pulled off is phenomenal. A lot of that has to do with the set, which a lot of it was accommodated to or built to accommodate the specific 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio that you want for theatrical film. It was designed more about width than height, the depth of the shot and the width of the shot to get like I said, the shot that I absolutely love is possible because of the width of the house, the dimensions that it's built in. So it's just an absolutely incredible set. The way this movie is shot is just phenomenal. Again, the way it emphasizes these vertical lines, these separations between these different classes of people is just masterful. There are a couple of specific choices in shots. You'll see it mirrored when each of the Kim children is having their conversation with Mrs. Park when they're coming out of the house, and you see them. It's a medium shot of the two characters, and they're coming downstairs. And once it gets to the point where the character has their, oh yeah, I've got a plan here moment, the entire perspective of the camera shifts, so you're seeing them directly. And then when that happens, it becomes an upward facing shot because the characters are thinking about upward mobility in that moment. So the camera just naturally turns up. And the way that darkness is used in this movie to emphasize the living conditions of the poor people. You look at the Parks house and you have this beautiful sunlight coming into this giant open window, and you go to the Kim's apartment, and one of the lines I really love is Ki-woo laying in the yard, and he says something along the lines of, "I'm looking at the sun from my own house."
Yeah.
Which is not a thing he can do. He can barely see the sunlight from their apartment because of, their semi basement, and they basically only see the street,
Yeah.
the level of the street, and just the way this they use stairs, as the Kims are ascending in status, they're always climbing stairs, and as things are getting worse, they're always going downhill, and it's just phenomenal. Visual storytelling and visual thematic resonance.
Yeah, that's where Bong Joon-ho just has my heart, man.
Yeah.
He just, every little detail is just so important. Oh, I love this, man.
Yeah, I was talking to James earlier, and I kind of feel like, if you've seen enough of Bong's films, you know that the themes of this movie are common themes of his other movies. Okja is very much about, it's obviously about the economy of global food production. That's a big part of it, but it's also about the separation of the working class from the elites, things like that. Snowpiercer that is what that movie is about, is class distinction and how, the haves versus the have-nots, but also how the haves can pit the have-nots versus the have-nots.
Yeah.
Because they have the power to do that. And this movie is just those themes to the next level. It's just a perfect representation of the things that he loves to talk about in his movies. So, Parasite, man, fuck, what a great fucking film. That said, was there anything that didn't work for you in this movie?
Bro, I'm not even gonna try to nitpick this movie. No. Like, we'll get into least favorite scene, and I mean, I've got something there.
Yeah.
But no, dude. Like, this shit was damn near perfect.
Yeah. Performances, as far as I know, good all around. Yeah, I don't speak Korean, so it's kind of tough with the line deliveries to tell if it's done well or it's done poorly, but I give it the benefit of the doubt because I think for the most part the body language sells the meaning of what the dialogue is supposed to be and things like that. There's a couple of moments where I'm like, I have to remind myself sometimes this is a satire. It's meant to be a little theatrical, a little over the top. The character is supposed to be, cartoonish, extra. That's kind of the point of what is happening in this movie. So yeah, that said, I don't really think there was anything in this movie that didn't work for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So we'll go ahead and move into award season. Celebrate the things that we loved and, I guess mention the one or two things that we maybe didn't love. James, what was your favorite scene in this movie?
All right. So you kind of already set it up before the break. My favorite scene is kind of the aftermath of the flood scene where Mrs. Park is setting up the impromptu birthday party. It's a clear example of how the elites pull the strings. They can throw money at whatever they want, whenever they want, and get the result they desire. The struggling class can't manage to just get through a day without worrying about their financial stability, but when they're at their worst, needing to find a solution, they're held at ransom by this opportunity to make more money.
Yeah.
So they go. The daughter loses her life. The son almost dies, has to have brain surgery. The father's left to live in exile, risk his life just to survive. And the mother's left without a complete family. And it's just the sad reality of a broken system.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite scene because it makes me feel good.
Right.
But it's my favorite scene because it just really does a fantastic job of representing what it is.
Right. I'm not doing this because I want to ride James's coattails or something. I'm doing this because I feel how I feel about movies. I don't know what to tell you guys. We hope for diversity, but sometimes it just doesn't come. I have the party prep montage scene.
Shit.
Yeah, like I said earlier, that scene is just masterful visual storytelling. It conveys the themes of this movie, I think, better than any sequence in this movie possibly can. The things I already mentioned, the difference in what it was like for the Kims to wake up in the morning and the Parks to wake up in the morning, what it looked like to get dressed for the Kims and what it looked like to get dressed for the Parks. And then, of course, the scene, especially the scenes with Mrs. Park where she is just casually strolling through places, kind of just chucking stuff to, throwing stuff in the cart.
Mm-hmm.
Kim bags all the groceries, carries all the groceries. In the car, she does the open the window thing. Like, I mean, it's just, this
Got her
is
feet up just on the phone.
If you wanted to sum up the themes of this movie in a 3 to 5 minute scene, this is the scene that does it better than any scene in this movie. So I absolutely love this scene. I already know that we're not going to have any variants in the next category either, or the next award either, because I think before we even started talking about awards and stuff, we had already talked about this scene, and I kind of knew how this was going to go. So, James, what's your least favorite scene in this movie?
So, our least favorite scene in this movie is the not sex scene.
Yeah.
Again, we discussed this before the podcast, before we even did our prep. I think it was the day after I had watched it, and we were just talking about it, and it just, we get it, we understand why it's there, but it is just so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Across the board, it's uncomfortable from the sense that, the voyeuristic aspect is uncomfortable for me. In that specific sense, because I know there are people under the fucking coffee table that don't want to be having to listen to this shit. But also just the specifics of the role play that they do is just disgusting to me. The let's play poor down, like, economic, it's just
like that's what gets you off. Yeah.
I understand what the scene was conveying, but I don't think the scene was necessary. There was some thematic exposition with the conversation about how Mr. Kim smells and things like that. So I think that was more the reason the scene was there than the rest of it, which just didn't really work for me. And I'm probably not going to watch the scene on my rewatches. It's not necessary.
I'm sorry, but like clockwise.
Right. And I don't, obviously I don't say this to be a prude, guys. Like I'm fine with sex scenes, nudity, like that stuff doesn't bother me. It's just the uncomfortability of this specific, the way it's played in this movie is it's really, like I said, just uncomfortable and awkward, and it's rough. The scene that the only scene in this movie that I'm not enjoying for the entirety of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Who's your favorite character?
All right, here's hoping we have a different one. Who cares if we don't? I'm only hesitating because I don't want to butcher this pronunciation, but fuck it. We said sorry. Jinsei? Jinsei? Jinsei.
Jinsei.
All right. He is my favorite character because this is the example of, in my opinion, the worst case scenario of a person just being driven down by his failures, trying to open his own business. He tragically idolizes a man who represents the kind of the best case scenario out of this system. And ultimately the spiral results in him literally losing everything.
Yeah.
Again, it's not a favorite of mine, for a happy reason.
Right.
But it's just the reality of it, man. Like, this is how bad it can get. This is what you can push a person to. It makes me so sad that, like, it just gives me this deep feeling in my chest when I think about it.
Yeah.
But it's also the fact that I'm watching this movie and halfway in, kind of start to settle in with, okay, you've got the Kims, the Parks.
Mm.
This is what we're exploring.
Right.
And then Bong adds this
Third
other
element,
level
right.
of this third element to just show you, no, there's levels to this shit, man.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's like Moon Gwang says when they're in the basement. She says, "We're both needy," and Jung Suk says, "I'm not needy." She says, "But I am." You know, like it's shows you, I guess, how quickly the mindset can change from this is someone like me to this is my competition or someone below me because of what I have achieved now.
And that reveal and that level of depth added to the story through this character is ultimately why I decided on it. I think this was one of my last awards.
Yeah.
I was having a real hard time pinpointing this one, but finally dawned on me that I was like, man, here's this perfect example of just how fucking terrible this can be.
Right.
So, yeah, who's yours?
I have an answer written down, but I think I'm actually going to pivot from the answer. This was a really hard award for me to give out because this is a weird movie for favorite character because none of these characters are really aspirational to me for the most part, you know? Like each of them does something, I don't want to say reprehensible, but something morally corrupt at some point in this movie that I have an issue with. So I guess it's really just about who I relate to the most. I think it's Kitek in this movie. You know, the father has a lot of weight on his shoulders. I feel that pressure a lot. Also, I think he's one of the characters that has more layers to him. You know, there's the scene where they're all sitting around drinking and Chung Suk calls him a cockroach, and you see him react to that, which, you know, he claims is a joke. Whether it was or wasn't is kind of left up to your own interpretation. But you see that his family can see him a certain way because of, you know, maybe what they've experienced with him previously, like his lack of commitment or willing to take risks or whatever it is that she sees in him that would cause her to say that. But then you see him stab Mr. Park at the end of this movie, and you're like, well, there's a lot going on with this character. Yeah, you know, there's a lot going on inside this guy's mind. Also, the philosophy of why make plans. I don't want to be nihilist when I say this kind of stuff, but like, you know, like realistically, I'm not a negative person. I don't feel like I'm a negative person. Other people would probably disagree with that, but I am the kind of person that's like, well, if I don't expect everything to go well, then I'm not going to be disappointed when it doesn't go the way I wanted it to. So I really related to the best plan is no plan because that plan can't fail, you know? I'm not saying I'm a no plan kind of guy. I run a business, so I kind of have to have a plan in order to run a business. It's not going to work without a plan. But, you know, outside of that, it's you know, kind of we'll just see what happens and make the best of it, you know, and that mindset is something I definitely relate to. So I'm a big fan of the Kitek character. Yeah, I definitely thought of you when he was talking about the not making plans, and if you know, don't have any expectations, then you'll never be disappointed when things go wrong. I've kind of been on the other side of that. You know, I'm a person who tries to be optimistic mentally all the time, and I just constantly run into the things that derail that. And create disappointment. Yeah, and sometimes I aspire to feel that way so that I don't run into that disappointment. But yeah, I was watching this scene and I was like, that's Josh.
Not in a bad way. Like
Yeah.
I said,
I'm not offended.
That's Josh. Like
I saw it when I saw it when I saw the movie too. I was like, oh yeah, I feel you, bro. Least favorite character? Who's your choice?
This one wasn't easy either.
I disagree.
No,
It's super easy for me.
I went with Park Da-sung, and I understand why he and his sister are necessary in the story.
Yeah.
But especially in regards to, because I almost went with his sister, Dae. But his impact to the story, other than, I mean, the smell thing was pretty huge.
Right.
But ultimately, it never ended up being the reason that they were found out.
Right.
So I just feel like in regards to the story and to the characters, he did not have that great of an impact.
Yeah. Real quick, ultimately they were never found out. That's part of the thing too. Is like the Parks still never knew.
Yeah, true. Yeah, even in the massacre, I mean, they really didn't ever.
Yeah, they weren't paying attention to the dead person on the ground. They didn't care about her at all.
Right.
She was a nobody to them.
So yeah, I just didn't feel like the song was. Yeah, like I could have watched this movie and the song not been there, and I probably wouldn't have noticed.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, I mean, it's just basically the end for Ki-jung, because otherwise, they have to. What reason do they have to bring her into the house? So yeah, I can see that. My least favorite character in this movie, and this is just based on how I feel about this character as a person, is Chung-suk.
Oh.
She murders Moon Gwang, like literally murders her. There's no other word for it.
Without
hesitation, kicks her down the stairs to preserve her way of life.
She also pushes.
She pushes the fucking dog, man. Like, if you want to create an enemy for life, like, be mean to animals in a fucking movie. You will definitely fall on the least favorite character list by doing shit like that. And she just seems. I think there are, for the most part, with the other members of the Kim family, I think there are things about the character we can go, you can make the argument that they are good people. Yeah. It's really hard to make the argument that Chung-suk is a good person based off what we see in this movie.
Yeah.
You know, she is confrontational. She is violent. She just doesn't really treat her husband with much respect or love for the most part. You know, you can tell that they're a close family, but she doesn't treat him like she loves him. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's just not, it's not apparent that she wants to be with him. It's just more like a, well, we're in this together kind of thing.
I mean, shit, even during the massacre scene, I mean, she saves herself.
Yeah.
You know, she does the deed and kills Jinsei, but like, I don't recall seeing her really running to Ki-young's attention or running to her to see how she was doing.
No, she actually does. Well, as soon as he yells for her, she runs up. I'm here, like, leave her alone, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
all right. I was trying to make her out worse than she was.
That would be the good thing about her character, I guess, is that she was upset that her daughter got stabbed.
Yeah.
That's low bar. Favorite performance? Who do you have?
I have Song Kang-ho.
Nice.
I loved him in Snowpiercer.
Fantastic in Snowpiercer. Real quick, the architect in this movie is based off the name is his character's name in Snowpiercer.
Yeah.
Namgung.
Namgung. I always want to say Numgang. Yeah, Namgung. Yeah, I absolutely loved him in Snowpiercer, a movie I've obviously actually seen.
He's fucking great in that movie. Absolutely great.
Yeah. And I loved him in this. I don't think it's particularly close with performances in this movie. I think he's up there.
Yeah.
I don't know how he didn't fucking win an award for this.
Right.
Honestly. Who do you have?
Well, he was in consideration for me. I had a feeling you might be leaning in that direction. So to keep things diverse, I went with Choi Woo-shik as Kiwoo.
Okay.
Which is just a really kind of really earnest, I think, portrayal You know, you feel the naivete of the character, and I mean, just the bit. I mean, I'll call it a bit. This is so metaphorical. every single time I laugh at that line, it is just so well delivered.
I kept laughing at that watching this with my wife.
Yeah.
And it just didn't hit for her, I guess. And she just kept looking over at me while I'm laughing. And I'm like, I'm sorry, it's fucking funny.
So funny to me. I mean, the first time, especially when he's handed the rock, this is so metaphorical. Oh my God, I laughed so fucking hard when I saw that scene. But I just really enjoyed the performance. I think the scene before the chaos erupts at the party, when he's with the high and he's in the room and he's looking down on the party, and you know, the do I fit in speech, just very, very good acting. I think his performance is as good as anybody else's in this movie. Like I said, your choice was also in consideration, but I had a feeling that felt like the chalk pick, so I just wanted to have some diversity here. But you know, props to literally every member of this cast. We'll come back to that. Least favorite performance. Who you have?
Man, I feel like I kind of copped out on this one, but it is what it is. We all get one eventually. The pizza shop manager girl,
really,
in the beginning, I don't know. It seemed kind of forced.
Yeah,
I not quite sure what about it. It's just I don't know, man. It didn't feel super authentic to me. But again, you were talking about it's hard to discern when
it's a language you don't speak. Yeah.
So I just overall a difficult movie to pick out someone and go, oh, like that's really bad acting. There's a moment I shared with you before the podcast in them drinking scene with Ki Young, but I don't know, man. It was kind of hard to pick this.
Yeah. James, you got to stop making these cop-out choices, man. I swear, you got to pick real answers. So for least favorite performance, I have none, and I don't care what you think about that. How about them apples? Applesauce, bitch. I mean, seriously.
You did the thing I wanted to do.
I know.
So props to you.
Yeah, I wasn't afraid to do it. I think every performance in this movie is fantastic. Again, I mean, maybe one of the performances is absolutely terrible, and I just don't know because I don't speak Korean. But me watching this movie, I believed every single character in this movie. There was not a single person who spoke a line of dialogue that I was like, oh, that didn't seem authentic to me. So I really couldn't choose a least favorite performance. All the Park family, fantastic. All the Kim family, fantastic. Min was great. I thought the pizza manager was good. So yeah, I mean, it's really hard to Moon Guang, Junsei, like it's all just fantastically rendered. So I have no complaints about any of the performances of this movie, and I refuse to pick one. So deal with it.
Daeheo in that scene you just referenced, where they're looking down on the party, when he says, "Do I fit in?" The face that she responds with is so good.
Yeah.
She's
why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. Whatever you say.
That's great.
We can go back to kissing me now.
Right.
Who's your coolest Tang in this movie?
For me, it's Kiwoo.
Yeah.
I want to do something kind of weird, and I want to withhold my reasoning for this until a later award, if that's okay.
That's fucking awesome. You want to know who my coolest Tang in this movie is?
Who?
Min. An actual fucking good friend.
Nice.
I mean, I love the Kiwoo character. He's a great character in this movie. Again, fantastic performance. But Min is the good friend, man. Kiwoo fucking goes after his girl.
He does steal his girl.
That's dude, come on, man. Like, you got to be better than that. I mean, of course, we don't know what the relationship between Min and, he could have just been a creepy stalker dude for all we know as far as that relationship goes. But, going there to bring the gift, the stone to Kiwoo, he didn't have to go all the way there, you know.
Right.
Like you can tell as soon as you see him that they are not from. They know each other, but they're not from the same place.
Yeah.
You know,
for
he's
sure.
got an Italian scooter. He's wearing a suit. His haircut is very well, you know, he's very well taken care of. You know, it's very obvious that they are not of the same social status. And I'm not saying like he's a great guy because he slummed it out. That's not what I'm saying. But, you know, he could have been like, hey, man, I got something for you. Come see me.
Right.
But he didn't do that. He brought it to him and also gave him an opportunity to make some money and take care of his family and things like that. And basically all I was like, hey, man, don't fuck my girlfriend while I'm gone.
Yeah.
That's not a lot to ask.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, my coolest Tang is Min, who seems like an actual good friend. Toughest Tang, who do you have?
I have Mrs. Park, the Korean Karen. Need I say any more?
That sums it up very well. The Korean Karen, that's fucking fantastic.
She's tough, bro. Get me out of the room as soon as possible with this lady. Like, fuck off. You and Fufu and whatever the other two dogs are. No, I'll keep the dogs.
I'll keep the dogs.
Yeah. I like the dogs.
Ms. Park can go.
Who's your toughest hang?
Motherfucker. Mrs. Park.
How's it not Mr. or Mrs.?
Young Yo is just fucking insufferable. What a fucking idiot. Just the worst version of, you know, like you said, a total fucking Karen, man. Just completely oblivious to anything outside of her little circle and just fuck you. You suck. You're a trash person.
Fuck you.
Top Bop, what's your choice for this?
So I did have to listen to actually, no, I lied. I did pick it from the movie and then later went to the soundtrack to make sure I found the correct one. It's called The Belt of Faith. It's the song that plays during the plot to trigger Moonguang's peach allergy. And I mean, there's just there's tonal shifts in the song, which is kind of a BongJoon-ho style in his direction, and that was just really just tickled me. Yeah. But also, we talked about this before, but strings and woodwinds, man.
Yeah, strings and woodwinds. Yeah,
like
that's what I told you. So you played it. You played it for me a little while ago. We were listening to not that specific track, but we were listening to it. And as soon as that came on, I was like, "This is crack." Yeah. This song right here is crack for me. I mean, it's exactly what I'm looking for in a score.
It's so fucking great. I actually added it to my playlist of songs. Like, go ahead and throw it in the rotation. Love it. I mean, it's like 8 minutes long though.
Yeah, 7 minutes, 50 seconds, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, it's a fantastic track. It was hard for me not to choose that, but I didn't, amazingly. I went with Zabaguri. It's the track that plays during the scene where the Parks are coming home unexpectedly while they're scrambling to clean everything up and hide and get the Ramadan cooked and get the people back in the bunker. And it's just, the tension ramps up so much with that music. And I don't think I love it on its own. Like A Belt of Faith, I think is a track that, like you said, I could put in a playlist and listen to while I'm cooking or something, and I think I would still enjoy it. This is a tougher one to appreciate outside of context, which I think is true of a lot of the score of this movie. Yeah, is outside of the visuals. It's kind of tough to really tell how it's supposed to, like, it just needs the context of the visuals. I think Zapaguri is one of the better songs with regard to that in terms of not needing it as much. But that just sets that scene so well and just ramps up the tension and, you know, just brings it to a fever pitch. And that's my top bop. Best fit. What's your choice for best fit?
So I went with this. Another thing that Kiwoo stole from Min. I went with Kiwoo's outfit in his fantasy towards the end of the movie. Inspired by Min.
It was it was in close consideration for me. That was one of the very specific fits that I immediately thought of.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just, and I honestly do think that he wore it better than Min.
Yeah.
Just sleek and clean and just I'm here to fuck shit up. You know what I mean? Like I'm here to do business. So.
Looks straight out of BTS.
So that was it for me. But there's some sharp dressers in this movie.
Absolutely. Mr. Park, very well dressed throughout this entire movie. I'm not going to choose a specific fit. I'm just going to choose Young Gyo's attire throughout this movie, which is just impeccable. You know, you can definitely tell that she is very affluent. And her husband makes a lot of money because she is very well dressed throughout this entire movie.
Word. All right. Well, I think now it's time to get into one of our strangest awards here.
Yep, time to get weird, especially for this movie. Not quite as weird as the last one where we're doing an animated movie, but still a little weird to jarring probably to put John C. Reilly in this movie.
Right.
So if you were to replace one actor from this movie with John C. Reilly, who would it be?
I think this person is like maybe has like a minute and a half of runtime in this movie.
Is it the peeing guy?
It is the fucking peeing guy. No, you didn't choose that.
I did not, but
okay.
as soon as you said a minute and a half of screen time, I was like, it's the peeing guy.
It's the drunk guy pissing in the alley.
Yeah.
I stand by it 100%. That's my John C. That's him. Just fucking.
just wait for mine.
All right.
You ready for this?
Oh man.
My John C. in this Reilly, or John C. Reilly in this. My John C. in this Reilly. My John C. Reilly in this movie. I mean, this was, I think, the first award I came up with when I was going through this.
Nice.
And it was so easy from the first time I heard the word respect. I knew exactly who John C. Reilly should be in this movie, and it's Junsei. I was shocked this was not your pick. I could not believe it. And I was so like when you went to favorite character and you said Junsei, I was like, oh my God, I don't think he picked it then. This is fucking great. I own this category. Yes, I get to do it. Yeah, it was immediate when I saw this movie. I was like, John C. Reilly, fucking Junsei.
I considered it.
Yeah.
I did. What kept me off of it was actually kind of him being my favorite character.
Right, that's kind of what I figured.
I didn't want to. I didn't want to make the character less serious.
Right.
But I mean, I'm really glad you picked it.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing: is the respect line is meant to be funny. Like parts of his performance are meant to be very funny, and then others are meant to be very serious and menacing. And I think people forget that before John C. Reilly was in all these comedy movies, he was a dramatic actor. He was in
do that.
Yeah, he was in Boogie Nights. He was in Gangs of New York, Chicago. Like he does drama. Like that's a thing he does. People take for granted that just because he was in Step Brothers and all these and Talladega Nights, all this stuff that's what he always did. Like that was a late career switch for him. So I mean, it's like. You see Steve Carell in movies now and they're all very serious and it's like, wait, wasn't he on The Office?
Right.
And it's like the opposite for John C. Reilly. So I think he would actually be great in this role, to play it straight, not to make me laugh.
Not as a joke.
Right, not to make me laugh, but I think he could really do well in this role.
Does he speak Korean?
Probably not.
Oh, okay.
But that's the thing, man. Does Song Kang-ho speak English? He doesn't in Snowpiercer.
Yeah.
Chris Evans does.
Yeah.
He doesn't. So he doesn't even have to do that.
Right.
Yeah. It'd be fine. It's a Bong Joon-ho movie. I expect an international cast in a Bong Joon-ho. I mean, Okja, like half the cast speaking Korean, half the cast speaking English, I legitimately... You have Steven Yeun as a translator.
I legitimately forgot fucking Chris Evans was in Snowpiercer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that fucking monologue about eating babies, man. That shit's fucking wild shit. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Speaking of eating babies, zombie apocalypse survival team. James, I'm not going to eat the baby on your team, but recall your team for us real quick.
I have,
which features a literal baby.
it does have a baby, a red shirt baby. I have Professor Rubius Hagrid.
You're gonna keep doing this bit every fucking episode.
From Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I have the one and only E.T. from E.T. I have Jim from 28 Days Later, Marta Cabrera from Knives Out, Neytiri from Avatar, Theo from Die Hard, Jack from The Incredibles.
A literal fucking baby. Drafted a literal baby to his team. Anyway, am
I going first?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So who are you adding to your survival team from Parasite?
I am going to add Ki-woo. So I mentioned back with Coolest Hang that I would eventually get to defending Ki-woo, and my reasoning on picking him for Coolest Hang, kind of my similar reason to picking him for Zombie Team. Ki-woo in this movie does everything with his family in mind to me. If you take out he's young, man. He's not thinking with his brain.
Right.
But everything he does, man, is for his family. He's the one trying to find the Wi-Fi for them to get the box folding gig.
Right.
He's the one that negotiates the terms of that gig, even when they lose 10%, and still gets an interview opportunity.
Sorry, there was one thing I meant to point out that I didn't earlier. Mrs. Park taking advantage of Ki-woo. I meant to put this in the quotes from the notes section, so it's a weird place to put this now, but I didn't want to forget it when you said that. Mrs. Park tells Ki-woo that she's giving him extra because of inflation more than she gives Min when she skims off the top of it because she's like, he doesn't know. I can take away, and pay him less.
I did not catch that until my third watch.
Yeah.
Because it's so quick.
Yeah, you barely see it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fucking scumbag.
That's why she's our toughest hang.
He orchestrates the plan to get the family into the house, obviously with help of the family members, but that's him. He gets in there and he's thinking, how can I get all of us ahead? He's always trying to figure out the plan.
Yeah.
And you need someone like that in the zombie apocalypse. You need someone that's constantly going to be thinking ahead, constantly thinking about the group as a whole and not just themselves. So Ki-woo.
That's a great pick. I went kind of in the opposite direction of that. I consider myself a pretty honest person. And as an honest person, a lot of times I find it hard to tell a lie. Definitely hard to tell a convincing lie.
Yeah.
So sometimes you need that person that can do that can pull off stuff like that for you. So I went with Ki-jung.
Okay.
Because you just never know. You might need a person that can hey, I am not comfortable. What needs to happen is we need to infiltrate this thing, or we need to get in good with these people, and the only way to do it is to lie to them.
Yeah.
I'm not good at that, but fucking Ki-jung is. She is great at forgery. She is great at acting. She is basically my master of whispers. You know what I mean? She's my Varys in the zombie apocalypse scenario. So I think that could be a very valuable asset to have.
Yeah.
But I did forget. Let me run through my team.
Oh, yeah.
Prior to that, so from Prisoner of Azkaban, I have Buckbeak. Yes. 28 Days Later, we took Selena. From E.T., I had to settle for Michael Taylor. That was unfortunate. No shade at Michael Taylor. Very capable kid, but still a kid, not fucking E.T. From Knives Out, I got Benoit Blanc. From Avatar, I got White Na'vi Jesus, Jake Sully. From Die Hard, I took Coral. And from Incredibles, I took Violet Parr. So I really like the way my team's shaking out so far. I've got a spy counterfeiter. I've got a literal human shield, like a human that just makes a shield. It's fucking great. I've got a quick escape. I've got a couple of enforcers. I've got White Na'vi Jesus. I'm feeling good about my squad so far. Also have Michael Taylor.
Got a driver.
Yeah, I don't need it. I have Buckbeak, but it's good that they have a driver.
Yeah, Ki Jung is that's a fantastic pick. I mean, that's invaluable in a world where every stranger you meet, you need to feel them out.
Yeah,
and you need to figure out either if they're going to be a threat to you, or what you can get from them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, that's mostly Benoit's job. Once he's diagnosed what we need to do in terms of that.
Then
all right,
you
now
send
Ki
in the
Jung.
ringer.
All right, let's go. Now you know what you need to do to make us be successful in whatever our endeavor is in this scenario. MVP chalk, guys. This is as chalk as it can fucking be. And if you're expecting there to be any answer other than one that we give you, then you do not understand this movie at all.
Can we just call this the BongJoon-Ho award?
Yeah, this is the Bong.
The Bong.
Who's your choice for the Bong, James?
And it's
the Bongy.
The bongiest bong of all bongs, man. It's BongJoon-Ho, bro.
BongJoon-ho, and there's no other choice. You mentioned that you had someone else that you wanted to give consideration to.
I have a shout out, but he's, I mean, this is a direct tie to BongJoon-ho, but shout out to Song Kang-ho, because Bong said that if Song Kang-ho had declined the role, he would not have made the movie.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, he had his guy.
Yeah.
He knew who he wanted, and he made the decision. Like, if he says no, not going to do it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, this is it. I think their fourth movie together. I believe they did Mother, Snowpiercer, The Host.
Yeah, which I've not seen Mother or The Host, but best believe I'm gonna get to it.
Yeah, I haven't seen Mother, but The Host is another fantastic movie. Definitely a lot of class, societal stuff in that movie as well. Again, similar themes in a lot of his movies. Yeah, I mean, I guess the other person that I would want to give some love to would be what's his name? Lee Ha-joon. Was that his name? Yeah, Lee Ha-joon, the DP.
Okay.
I just think. Again, I mentioned that the shots were very heavily storyboarded, but you still have to pull off those shots and create them on screen. And I just think the way this movie shot is absolutely beautiful. He's responsible for making the lighting choices and things like that. Like, obviously, Bong is telling him what to shoot, but he's the one that decides how to shoot it, I guess. And the way that some of these shots look, like I said, that shot that I talked about earlier is one of my favorite shots of any movie I've seen in the last decade or so. I just absolutely love that shot. It's just so fucking great. But yeah, I mean, it's Bong.
Yeah.
Best director, best picture, best original screenplay. Like it's Bong Joon-ho, and I don't. It's just really hard to make any kind of argument that it's somebody else. When someone is that involved in the creative and artistic aspects of the movie, it's going to be that guy. So
when someone says, this is exactly how I want this house designed, and I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah.
This
is exactly how the shot should look. Here's exactly what to say in the scene. And, I mean, like, even, details in the script, like, the scene with Moon Gwang and the stairs, and she does that grin that I was talking about earlier. Like, it's described very specifically in the script, and that's his hand saying this is how it should be, and if we do it this way, it's going to work, and it did. Just an absolutely brilliant film. Thank you. Thank you, Bong Joon-ho, because this was an experience. I absolutely love this movie.
Yeah. Did we talk about the flood scene at all? I think there was something I
not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot. I don't. This is not. I'm sure this is something that anyone like you or me that watches movies the way we do surely noticed. But the amount of stairs that the family has to
go down to get home.
Get, like.
Yeah.
So metaphorical. But literally. Yeah, decisions like that, man. Show don't tell. We're huge on that.
Yeah, I won't call out the critic that called all that stuff heavy-handed, who does not understand the point of satire. But that was one of the reviews I had an issue with for this movie.
But yeah, man, just you don't ascend that hierarchy, man. You're either one of the elites or you're not. Yeah. You might taste it for a minute, but you're gonna end up where you end up.
Yeah, I mean, social mobility is it's it's almost like a myth created by the rich to control the poor.
Yeah.
Like just work hard, keep working hard, keep working hard, and you'll get there. Yeah. Meanwhile, they're the ones profiting off the hard work of the lower classes. So just perpetuates the cycle.
Yep.
I'm going to ask a very obvious question here, James. Would you watch this movie again?
I've watched it 3 times in the last 2 days, and I'm pretty sure I might watch it again before next week.
Excellent. That's the goal, man, is to find movies that you love. Like I said, we've discussed, you're not going to love every movie that I choose. Some of the movies I'm choosing knowing that you will not necessarily even like them, but I just, some movies I just feel like whether I think you're going to like them or not are just movies I feel like you should see.
Yeah.
So yeah, I knew you would love this movie. It's no surprise to me whatsoever how you felt about it. So, just excited that we get to share the love that we have for this movie with our audience. Yeah. Who, all have by now subscribed to the YouTube channel, have subscribed to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get them. We're not particular. You are surely following us on Twitter at Must Have Missed It. Obviously, you're checking out every one of our Instagram posts at Must Have Missed It. You've seen all of our TikTok videos at Must Have Missed It, and you're active in our Discord. If you are, you're the only person. Anything else you want to add about this movie, James?
Just one thing, and then we can leave it for the outro. Respect!
That was my outro. You ruined it.
Oh, fuck.
It's okay. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks for listening. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. You know what you earn if you do that? Respect.
Yeah.